And good evening, everyone. Welcome into my Fieldhouse Files live post-game show. Do one of these after every single Pacers playoff game. And what do you know? The Pacers are 2-0 in this best of 7 series. I thought it was foolish, all that talk before the series. Are the Pacers scared? How will they rise to the moment? They're at Madison Square Garden. Have you watched this team all season? You kidding me? They're built on a group that has always been discounted, that has always been secondary, that has always been picked over. This is a group that a lot of them are getting their second chance with the Pacers. They don't give a damn what environment they're playing in. This team has continued to play some of the best basketball of any team in the league over the last 5 months or so, and that continues right now. They're 8-1 in their last 9 games. They're 6-1 on the road, and for the second consecutive series, the Pacers went on the road. First time Cleveland, this time New York, and now have a 2-0 series lead as they return to Indianapolis. I'm Scott Agness of FieldhouseFiles.com. Thanks for everyone who joins me here on this live post-game show on YouTube. I'll also post it to the Fieldhouse Files podcast. But so much to discuss in this game, and I think the overwhelming takeaway here is Pacers didn't look great. They did not look sharp most of the time, but they always had an answer. They didn't get themselves in too big of hole. They only trailed by as many as 7 in this one, led by as many as 10, and that was late in the game when it was 110-100. So this was a game that was very much up for grabs, and yet again, I feel like it was also a situation where the Pacers finished to the season, their final month and a half, set them up for this. Sometimes you talk about unexpected blessings. Maybe that was this intervention here, right? Where they had countless games over March, the final first weeks in April, where every game was down to the wire. Every game was clutch time. Every game was difficult. And most of the time, they squeaked it out. They didn't against the Lakers with LeBron's tip-in. They lost the Magic in their second to last game, which didn't matter a ton, although they had to win their final game to guarantee them the 4th seed, which helped with home court advantage. Although, what is home court advantage in these postseason? It has not mattered nearly as much as it traditionally does. It used to be like home team won like 70% of games, 60% of games. That is not the case. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Ryan. Pacers 10-2 in these playoffs. They've been challenged in the games, but when you add up the record, they have not been challenged in these playoffs. They put away the Milwaukee Bucks, then they handled the Cavaliers, and now still far from being over. I want to preface it with that. It's a very good Knicks team. It's a deep team, but the Pacers have the Knicks exactly where they want them. Not only do they have the lead, but it's going to take so much energy, so many good performances for the Knicks to make a comeback and do this. This was the great fear about the Knicks heading into this series was if it's back and forth or if it stretches to 6 or 7 games, can the Knicks hold on? Well, right now it's looking probably like a 5-game gentleman's sweep again for the Pacers at this current rate. I think they get at least one in Indianapolis. You're obviously, if you're the Pacers, you're a little bit fearful going into game 3, knowing what happened last series against the Cavaliers. But, man, they were in a good place after this 114-109 game 2 victory. It was bizarre at the end of the game to hear to hear nothing, for it to be so quiet in the Mecca, in a building that erupts. It's one of the loudest buildings in the NBA, probably top 3, I would say, when it is cooking. When things are going well, everybody's in a good spot. It was not a aesthetically pleasing, great game, right? It featured 17 ties and 17 lead changes. If that doesn't smell out Pacers Knicks in the postseason, I don't know what does. That is a great representation of where it's at right now, and just an unbelievable job that the Pacers have done in winning these games. I think it's also will be interesting to see what the game 2 rating is for this one. It was more than 6 million. Yeah, the most watched opener to the conference finals in 7 years. You got to go back to 2018. I put that out yesterday. I thought that was fascinating because all this nonsense talk about the small markets and no one. Well, look, you have the Knicks involved. You had some theatrics in game 1. I would assume there was a good sizable audience as well in game 2 as well. Now, being a Friday night helps in some respects, hurts in others, especially now as I don't know the school calendar, but as some schools are letting off, maybe some are starting vacations and some are such coming up here. But man, yeah, Pacers are in a very good spot, feeling comfortable, but not content. One of the big things that this coaching staff preached to this team coming into this Eastern Conference Finals series was it's 13 days. This is a 13-day experience. So what you do on day one matters to get to day 10. And you got to keep stacking the days. That was essentially the message. So they handled their business on day one. Why it's 13 days? If it goes to 7 games, it would span 13 days. So that was the message there. But here on day 3, the second game, again, didn't look content, didn't play their best basketball, but still managed to squeak out a win. All right, let's get to some of the comments here. Indy Hawk, what am I doing? Am I doing the double live Sunday? A little bit. Remember, I'm not credentialed for Pacer games. Still don't know why, at least until the finals here. But Pacers don't credential me, so I will not be at game 3 coming up on Sunday. I will be at the race. Indy 500 is great. I was out at the track here today. I'm wearing this hat for this very reason. Like Tyrese is learning about, yes, we will have Pacers and racers, and it'll be a fascinating experience. Man, I'm thinking about the downtown safety patrol, the cops, fire. Like, there's going to be a lot of belligerent drunks downtown at the race. And I'll be curious what the crowd is like at the Fieldhouse. Are they like sleepy and passed out, or are they rolling this good time into game 3 coming up on Sunday? I think it's a good thing that it's a gold out and they're giving away gold t-shirts to everyone, because just imagine some of the crowd will come straight from Indianapolis Motor Speedway in tank tops, jorts, reckless outfits like you wear out there. Some will. And you go over to the Pacer game. You want a better situation. So yes, Sunday, 8 p.m. TNT again, same announcing crew, Reggie and company. And yeah, it'll make for an electrifying game. But no, Pops, I am not doing the double, unfortunately, unless Pacers want to come to their senses and take care of me as they did for the last 12 years. Basil, what's up? He says Siakam played like we have been needing him to, aggressive and looking for a shot. Absolutely. This was a situation where, and I explained this into my At the Buzzer column. Check that out, by the way, at fieldhousefiles.com. Pacers acquired him at the trade deadline last February to get them to the playoffs and then do more. Well, the more now is to repeat what they did last year, and they did get to the Eastern Conference Finals. The more now is step up in these big games, handle their composure. He's the quiet leader on this team in many respects. He's never going to grab hold of the room. He's not one to raise his voice too much. He will in need, but Siakam has been everything and more that this Pacers team had hoped for. I mean, in talking to some of the executives, they were raving about the guy that and the contributions he made on the court. Obviously, we knew that was coming, but even more so in the locker room. And that was just in the first couple of months of him being here in Indianapolis. Now you give him a year and a half. And I go back to even the off season where he hosted the rookies and first year guys, meaning second year guys, down to his Orlando gym where he trains in the off season. I think about the time where he hosted the entire team down to Orlando for the situation there, just to get the guys ready for the season, kind of the team bonding situation. And then once you get to training camp, where obviously before the season, you go over to GM Chad Buchanan's house and set the tone for the year. It was 2 years ago when they had all the guys that had won something to go to the front of the basketball court Chad Buchanan has in his Westfield home and talk about what it takes to get to that next level. Talk about what it takes to be on a championship winning team. There was only a handful of guys that had been able to do that. It was like Bruce Brown, for example, and a couple others. Well, now this year it was talk of setting the baseline, setting those goals, and heading into the new season, truly believing in each other, truly believing that a championship is a possibility. Last year, you was happy to be here. Last year was getting back to the playoffs. This is a much different situation. Went on a little bit of a tangent, but wanted to also provide the big picture here for some fans that haven't been following for a while, some that might forget, and maybe some Knicks or other NBA fans jumping in or joining the Pacers bandwagon. As a beat writer covering this team since 2012, I like to provide the context, the nuance, the small and big stuff that helps complete a team like the Pacers. MK Sync, I think you're 12 for 12 in attending these post-game sessions. Much appreciated. Says fully expected to talk about missed free throws. Yeah, absolutely. Being one of the main reasons for the loss, but instead the Pacers keep doing Pacer things at the end of the games. Yeah, how about that? And I noted that they made their last 7 free throws, including 4 in that final 10. I think it was 10 seconds. Maybe it was a minute. But either way, it was Neesmith and I think Miles Turner going to the line and knocking down their free throws. Huge. Absolutely huge. But I agree with you, MK. I was absolutely prepared to say, hey, look, Pacers lost by 2, and they left 8 free throws on the board, missing free throws. I'm also seeing a lot of that with the Fever right now. So that's a big crossover that's happening from both sides. Basil says, hopefully Matherin gets it together. He's been bad the last few games. Well, here's the challenge in that. Like tonight, he wasn't bad, but he wasn't great. Most of the team wasn't great. What was interesting, though, was he didn't play in that second half. Pacers coaching staff limited Matherin to just under 11 minutes. Obi Toppin played more. McConnell played more. Ben Shepherd played more. For a guy that many want in the starting lineup, for a guy who believes he's a starter and has all-star and more potential, yeah, he's got to elevate his game. But I'm also sympathetic too that it's different coming off the bench, and when other guys aren't clicking, you're not going to look as good. But he's also a guy that he needs to get to the free throw line. Didn't tonight. Put up 2 shots, missed both of those. It was definitely more of an off night for him, but then he didn't get a chance to come back there in that second half and make a difference as well. Seemed like a good opportunity for Ben Shepherd to step up, but oh, you mean Matherin, MK? Yeah, same thing, and I just talked about that. Isn't it 2 in New York, 3 in Indy, 2 in New York? No. Go Design. It's the old school format, right? So it's 2-2-1-1-1. So it'll be 2 in Indy coming up for game 3 and 4, which will be on Sunday and Tuesday in Indianapolis at Gainbridge Fieldhouse as we continue this incredible ride this upcoming weekend, starting with the 500 Festival Parade Saturday morning, go right into and by the way, former Pacer center Scott Pollard's the Grand Marshal leading the way for that 500 Festival Parade. I'm disappointed I won't be able to make it or cover that this year because of the Fever. Fever hosts the reigning champs, 1 p.m. seen nationally coming up on CBS, and then Sunday, Indy 500, 12:45 p.m. Green flag. I think it's cool. I think it's Carly Ursay Foyt will be waving. Casey Ursay Foyt will be waving the green flag to get things started. That's cool considering she and her sisters lost their father this week. Jim Irsay passing away at 65 on Wednesday. I'm told they had another person already lined up, a national person, a former athlete everybody would know here, but they made a last-second change, and I'm so glad they did. It's local, it's fitting, it's appropriate given Ursay's impact, and for a race that's so community-driven, that's so about Indianapolis, that's so about tradition. Ursay loved this community, probably gave more than $100 million away just to individuals, to businesses, to people who needed it, to companies who needed it, to people that needed a second chance, things like that. But anyway, that was a random tangent for the Indy 500. And then, of course, game 3 coming up Sunday night on 8 o'clock. And then it'll go back to New York after game 4 on Tuesday, if necessary, I guess. I shouldn't say it will go back to New York. That's only if Pacers don't win both games at home. All right, what else we got? P finally played like an all-star tonight. I think Pacers will take game 3 against Cleveland to heart and play well on Sunday. Very well could be. I think it's so hard to be in the prediction business. That's why I try to stay out of it when people ask for my predictions for the series, right? I knew this was going to be a challenge. I knew if it needed, it would go the distance. But it's very difficult to predict or feel like you have a good read on the situation. I mean, didn't we hear on the post-game show with Shaq, TNT, pre-game he was worried. He said Tyrese was smiling and too happy in his interview with Reggie. Then post-game he apologized for that because Pacers, while they didn't play great, they were serious enough and focused enough to get the win. But anyway, yeah, I think it's tough to predict whether that will be the case. But given how everything went badly in game 3 against the Cavs, I think that's a nice wake-up call. It's a good message that, hey, you cannot be content going up 2-0. No doubt about that. Can't wait for that guy that was invited by Halliburton for game 4. Yeah, that'll be Tuesday. You're right, Eor Longus. Absolutely. Can you explain what happened to the Indy 500? That's a whole different crowd, I think, on here, but I can briefly summarize. There's a lot of you're talking about the 3 executives. Yeah, Penske's had things that flew under the table that the checks and balances didn't quite work, so they basically fired 3 of their top executives, including like their top president, Tim Cindric. And it's a little complicated because the owner of the track now is Roger Penske, who owns Penske Racing. So, it'd be like, I don't know, NBA commissioner Adam Silver also owning an NBA team. And while they are about to reach the playoffs, he fires the team president, GM, and head athletic trainer. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Those are 3 central figures to what you're trying to do here. There's a lot more that happened. Today was the last day cars are on the track before Sunday, what's known as Carb Day. But it's exciting time in Indy. Carb Day is one of my favorite days each year out at the Speedway. No doubt about that. If the Pacers get to the finals, they are playing with house money. Thunder will have all the pressure on them to win it all. I would agree. Yeah, they were the best team all season. They are the deepest team. They have an incredible defensive team. So nobody will go into that series picking the Pacers to win. Not at all. And so, it is a little bit house money, but I think more than anything, Ryan, it's you're playing without pressure. You're playing free. You're playing just to get 1. If you get 1, you're playing just to get 2. And you go from there and see what happens. Respect to Brunson, not so much to Shea with his fouls, unfortunately. They both try to get fouls. Look, if you're a star in this league, you're going to try to find ways to get fouls. We see it with Reggie and Indy back in his day, where he'd do the leg kick to try to garner fouls. And why wouldn't you if you continue to get them? Now, if it doesn't work, that's when players are going to stop doing it, right? Do the Pacers practice tomorrow? I doubt it. I do believe they will get together. You're going to watch film. You're going to review what happened. Those players that played 10 minutes or less, basically anybody outside the starters might want to do something, might want to play 5-on-5, 3-on-3, get some cardio in. They'll lift some weights, obviously eat healthy. But I wouldn't expect a formal Pacers practice when they're in practice jerseys and scrimmaging or anything like that. What they might do, and teams tend to do, is they might walk through things. So you have a scout team that's in green pennies. Usually it's interns. And then you walk through. All right. For example, I thought it was very interesting in that fourth quarter that the Knicks took Karl-Anthony Towns out of the game and didn't play him much in that fourth quarter. Only played him about 5 minutes in that fourth. And it was Mitchell Robinson who was on the court for, I think, 9:30, about 9 minutes and 30 seconds there in that fourth quarter. I was very intrigued by that. Now, Mitchell obviously rebounds hard, plays well from that respect. Oops, I totally forgot to tweet out for people to join me live here. But, I think it's a situation where I hate to use plus minus, but this one, it was pretty monster. Karl-Anthony Towns was minus 20 in this game in the plus minus. So maybe that's what led ultimately the Knicks to decide, hey, let's pull him off the floor. Let's play a little bit smaller. Let's put Mitchell Robinson in there and go from there ultimately. But it's a tough situation, obviously, given all that transpired. And look, before the game, he was voted All-NBA. I think that's fascinating that a guy like that, who's voted second team All-NBA, was schemed off the court there. Very interesting to me, for sure. All right, got my tweet out to get even more people in here, which is a good thing. I forgot to tweet it out here before I jumped on here. I was racing to do many old things. But yeah, Siakam was the star of the game. I mean, the fact that he scored their first 11, I thought it was cool that him and OG Anunoby, former Raptors, scored 16 of the first 17 points combined. Siakam had 21 of the Pacers' first 31, finished with a career high 39 points in this one, 5 rebounds as well. He was just fantastic. He really was. And I think what frustrates many is to see a performance like this, see him take over, see him score at multi-levels, and then also see him have games like last where he had like 15 points and wasn't nearly as impactful on the offensive end. Pacers and OKC potentially in the finals will be so sweet. Yeah, I think it would be a lot of fun. I think it's pretty clear that OKC absolutely will be there. They've been the dominant team all season. They're already up 2-0. They win easily by double digits. I think it likely the Pacers will get there, but you can't count their cards just yet. Of course, it would be nice to sweep Go Design. But as long as you get the win, that's all you're looking for, whether it takes 4 or 5. But that's got to be on your mind. Let's get it done soon. The finals do not start until June 5th. So however early you can finish off this series means you get more rest. That's the one thing that's good and bad to an extent about the dates for the NBA finals already starting or already having the dates known. It means if both teams, let's say, winning 4 or 5 games, we might have a week between games. Now, on the other side of that, what if one team wins in 4 with a sweep and another team pushes it to 7? The other team's going to have another 5 days off. So that's advantageous. And that's where you take advantage of your circumstances. Granny Danger's on here. Pascal domination. Absolutely. I think it's the greatest trade the Pacers have ever made. Whew. That I'd have to reconsider that one. I'd honestly put Tyrese Halliburton in there. I think I would, because without him, you're not going to get Pascal. You're not going out and getting all those players to surround Halliburton and lean into his playing style and all those sorts of things. That's the thing that's very different. Siakam came in to put them over the top versus Halliburton came in for the reset to help this new era of Pacers basketball. Obviously, it cost you less, sending Bruce Brown and I think a first-round pick to Toronto. Ultimately, whereas over to Sacramento, you had to give up Sabonis and several other pieces as well. But you got Buddy back and a player that's wanted to be here, that wants to have set his roots here, that's gives back to the Indy community, has his 4th Indy annual basketball camp this summer. So Halliburton's worked out very nicely. MK, any injuries in the post game for either team? Jalen looked like he may have aggravated his ankle. That's unclear at this point. I think Robinson clearly tweaked an ankle. Thomas Bryant jammed a finger. It looked like his right hand, but that was not completely certain. He played some key minutes there. I think it was in the second quarter, but was then limited after that and didn't play. They gave the bulk of the backup center minutes actually to Tony Bradley, who the Pacers signed to first a couple of 10-day contracts in early March and then ultimately to a rest of season contract. Fever, the Pacers, Indy 500. It's the trifecta for Indianapolis. Absolutely. It's a great time to be in Indianapolis, for sure about that. I got a story I'll probably write for Race Day Sunday about that, about how these teams are in it together, how it's a spectacular weekend for us in Indy to experience all this. And also, I'll probably tie in how all the Indy teams are together with whatever they are doing, and they're unified in all this. And I think that's something you do not see necessarily in other cities. It's something that seems truly unique in my mind right here. Do I like or watch Formula One? Now, that is a question I did not expect to get here on the postgame show. Have not really given it a chance, if I'm being honest. Have not watched the Formula One documentary, so I do not know too much about that, Mr. Compton. No. PJ's welcome says, funny how all these other teams' fans who have been talking smack about the Pacers all season are jumping on the Pacers bandwagon now. Sure. I wouldn't discourage that. I think all are welcome is what I would say if I were you, PJs. Absolutely. You got to realize nobody's watching your team more than you. And so you understand the makeup of this team and how much you've been through. And those dire years several years ago where they missed the playoffs for 3 straight years and were in the lottery. Then things started to get good with Rick Carlisle at the helm. And ever since he has gotten here, he's completely reshaped and turned around this franchise starting in 2021. They realized, hey, look, you got to complete a rebuild. So that's what they pivoted there, I think, early in his first season after a bad loss, I think by 30 to Charlotte, and said, all right, we got to tear this down and kind of start over for the most part. Now, Miles Turner's still here. TJ McConnell's still here. Some staffers are still here, although they've changed out several of the staffers, like the strength coach had been here 20 years. And for whatever reason, they decided to go elsewhere and move on. And there's several other changes. A no equipment manager. It goes on down. PR for changed with David Benner passing away. So while some has stayed the same, a lot is different as well. Reggie did not leg kick for fouls. He leg kicked because he had a funny looking shot. Nah, he leaned into the kick. Let's not kid ourselves. Come on now. What else do we got here? Been trying to watch all the WNBA games. Just came to say hi. Go Pacers. All right, Lindy. Appreciate you jumping on. I know I got a lot of crossover here, I'm sure, with Fever fans jumping on and checking things out. Obviously, I think the majority of my audience so quickly has become Fever fans. It's unreal. I think I'm close to 20,000 subscribers here. I've had 2 million views on my YouTube over the last 28 days. It's unreal. The dedication fans have. So that is absolutely appreciated. And we'll try to get all this coverage up there for Pacers, a team I've been covering since 2012, the longest tenured guy on the beat. Josh, appreciate the love, man. Shout out to you. Thanks so much. Really do appreciate the support, and anyone who likes to support here, whether a little money here or subscription at Fieldhouse Files, or you're just on and join me for a good conversation. All that is absolutely much appreciated. You also added Miles looked a little banged up to me. I don't know. It's hard to say. I'll be curious if he even talks post game. That's one area where the locker rooms will matter, and go and get those interviews, because they're going to bring a couple players out for the post game podium. One will be Siakam, and I would guess the other would be Tyrese Halliburton, two faces of this team. But you got to go into that locker room. That's what really matters most, and you can get a pulse of a team. Unfortunately, I am not there in New York at Madison Square Garden, so I cannot do that. But that's absolutely what I would be doing. And that's where all the best stories are anyways. Jency, love your show. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks so much for joining me here. Hope you're with me at fieldhousefiles.com as well. Miles was huge in the fourth. Yes, great point, Uncouth. No doubt. 13 of his 16 points in that fourth quarter. He made 2 big free throws, had that memorable pop-out three-pointer. He had at least, I think it was a couple blocks. Maybe it was just one earlier in the game. He's just sound and reliable. Now, Mitchell Robinson was out working the Pacers, and maybe that's something I should touch on here. Excuse me. One of the things that was so frustrating to watch was how badly the Pacers were outworked in that first half, especially, but in totality on the boards. That was a big challenge for them and what they were trying to get accomplished. That Robinson was just flying in there and getting all the rebounds, right? He finished with 9, half of them, just under half, 4 of them were on the offensive end. Now, this was a game where turnovers weren't nearly as bad for either team. I think the Knicks, they had 13 tonight. I think they might have had like 17 last game that cost them like 29 points. Tonight, 13 turnovers leading into 17 points. On the other side, Pacers have been marvelous with the ball this series. Just 6 turnovers last game, 10 tonight, leading to just 12 points. I think you can live with that. You're good with that. Pacers were +4 in the paint against a team that is pretty paint dominant, with Karl-Anthony Towns, with Mitchell Robinson here tonight, with how easily that Jalen Brunson likes to get into the paint, lay things up, and all those sorts of things. So it's unreal. Brunson looked physically and mentally exhausted. Yeah, that's to be expected, though. I mean, Mikal Bridges played 45 minutes. Brunson played 39 minutes. That plays right into the Pacers' hands to wear them down. Pacers played 11. Knicks only played 8. Really only played 7. This has gone exactly how Pacers had hoped, with limited depth on one side, and they've been able to lean into theirs. Absolutely. Great to see Josh Hart disappearing after trashing Indy. Oh, I forgot about that. You're right. Wasn't that last year even before the playoffs? Saying, man, I don't like Indy. I don't want to go there, deal with it, whatever. I forgot about that. Basil, I'm glad you're not in New York. They would likely be assaulting you with trash. Probably not, because I'm just a reporter. Then again, my buddy Brian Windhorst got hit with it, but he's on national TV. They know him. Your other people don't necessarily know me as much, obviously. Just Pacer fans. So I think I would be okay, but I appreciate the concern. Eddie, appreciate it. What's up? Yeah, you like the hat? Absolutely. Little Pacers and Racers this weekend. We also have Fever, so that's fun. Jency, what's up? Just seeing that, a little something for me. Much appreciated. Shout out to you. Unnecessary, but very much appreciated as well. Uncouth, what's better than this? There's only one thing better than this. All right. I can think of some things. All right. Jency, sorry, Scott. Canadian money is behind and kind of worthless. It's kind of worthless right now. Is it? I guess I hadn't realized that, but there you go. We'll take it. Just Jules, what a weekend it'll be. Fever 500 and the Pacers. My nephew will be at the F-16 fighter jet flyover before the start. That's all. Oh, we'll be the lead. Holy heck. I thought you meant would be watching. We'll be the lead in the F-16. That's phenomenal. Wow. Yeah, Eddie, I agree. That is sick. I had to read that twice to fully get it because today they had the practice for all of that out of the track, and it's phenomenal. I think they came by like 3 or 4 times, including a quiet bunch, maybe a stealth bomber. I don't know enough, but there was a group that you saw them fly over and you could not hear them. They were silent. And then there were some military helicopters that kind of went over the straightaway. Man, that would be a phenomenal experience to be able to do. But yeah, we talk about it all here on the live post game show. Appreciate everyone joining in, whether it's Fever, Pacer, playoffs, Indy 500. Does not matter. I love everybody's support for Jules and her nephew or his nephew. I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, proud aunt. Yeah. For her nephew. I think that is awesome. So very cool there. Again, Pacers get the 114-109. Appreciate everyone joining me here. One of the things I talked about Towns, I talked about Tony Bradley. Those are two of the big things I wanted to touch on. Wanted to remind everyone that before the game, Tyrese Halliburton voted to the All-NBA third team, which a little bit surprised only given the way he started this season. Not very good, right? Struggled really for the first month and a half of the season, just like the entire Pacers team did. Excuse me. But for the way in which he was able to recover, the fact that the Pacers were able to recover after that alarming start. I remember doing a podcast saying, hey, is this team broken? Well, they were at the time briefly because they were going through all these injuries. Guys were not completely healthy. Guys were not themselves. It starts with Tyrese not being completely himself mentally or physically. He let us on a little bit saying, I'm good at the start of camp. Well, he clearly later on explained he was not. He hadn't been able to do much throughout the offseason with Team USA. We knew he was limited. We knew he got an MRI and was a little banged up there over in Paris. But we didn't realize it was that bad. And so now you're in a situation where he had to recover, and then Andrew Nembhard had to recover. Aaron Nesmith had to recover. Several other players got banged up as well. But the big difference was Halliburton getting healthy, Andrew Nembhard getting healthy there in the middle of December, and then Aaron Nesmith coming back in January. Those were the significant points. And then the biggest telltale, I think, ultimately was them not having success in the NBA Cup was the best thing for them. It was kind of like Caitlin Clark not going to the Olympics last year, because the best thing for her, while she would have wanted experience and win that gold medal, it was to stay back, get rest for a couple of weeks, then go hard with her Fever teammates, really get to bond, be on the court for about a month and get to know each other. I think they won like their next 6 games out of that, reached the playoffs. That rest time and everything kind of matters. So not kind of, it absolutely matters. So that's the current situation there. And yeah, being healthy, man, it changes everything. And so that's why these players over the next few days, it's imperative for them to get rest, fluids, and get body work, get massage, work with their physical therapist if they have an individual one or they're with someone with the team. That's what's most important for them over the next 48 hours before they ramp up to game 3 coming up on Sunday night. Towns seemed to be hobbled tonight. PJ says Brunson seemed banged up by the end of the game. There was a little bit of that. I think they're letting them be physical. I don't think it is too much. That's different than the Fever and the WNBA, where I think they're not allowing enough freedom of movement. I think they're allowing an adequate amount of contact. They're not calling too many fouls. In this game, look, you had 42 combined free throws. That's not far too many for a game like this. And you got to remember late in the game, there was the intentional foul on fouling Mitchell Robinson, the hack of Mitch. And then we saw the Knicks foul the Pacers a couple of times. So, I mean, basically there were like 36 free throws in this game. So not too bad. Blue Angels are in F-18. Really? Okay. Well, there you go. Mr. Compton, does Tyrese get any financial incentives for All NBA third team? I don't believe so. I don't think anything changes. I need to double check the CBA here today. That happened like 30 minutes before the game, but his biggest incentive was last year. By making it last year, his max contract became a super max. So his 25% of the cap is what he would have gotten starting this year. But because he was all NBA, that number escalated to 30% of the cap. And that's the way in which I really encourage everyone to kind of try to talk about contracts, because we're seeing the salary cap in the NBA go up the maximum 10% annually now, at least the next several years and the last previous several years. But with the new TV money kicking in next year, I think it'll only continue. Why it matters is $41 million, let's say, what Siakam's contract roughly is. If that's 40% of your cap or 20% of the cap, very different. Where it makes the most sense here coming up is what Miles Turner, whatever he gets paid ultimately will be, because it's going to be a higher number monetarily, but there's a very good chance it could be a less impactful contract from a salary cap standpoint. I'll say the rest of the minutia for the off season, because right now is an exciting time to talk a lot of the games, but Tyrese is getting that 30% of the cap. So he is in a very good spot. And this is year one of that max contract. So he's doing just fine with money to spare. Eddie says, I need to sip on some Surfside or Rheingeist. I haven't had Surfside. I know Rheingeist. I've been sipping on, this is actually water, by the way. This is Aquafina from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I got double of them here, actually, and I've just been running upstairs out of my office and filling them up. I'm basically water and a coffee guy, so I can't have coffee at this time, so I'm having a lot of water and trying to stay hydrated, especially given all that's going on here in downtown Indy. Oh, that's cool. People shouting out Eddie. Yeah, he does a great job. And by the way, you can listen to Eddie on the Fever radio network, as he does the pregame and postgame as well. Yeah, Tyrese already had his max contract. Yep, that's exactly what I was explaining, Uncouth. You're exactly right. Talking about the Flyer. Just curious if Sabonis instead of Turner, would the success be the same, better, or worse? Whew. Those are big picture questions that I love, but for the offseason, not we're in the middle of games. I would say it would be worse, because I think Miles is perfect for this style of offense. I think, keep in mind, what do they want to do? They want to spread you out. They want to run. They want to knock down threes. They don't want send it into the post, kill 4, 5, 6 seconds, that sort of thing. Where they would benefit from Sabonis the most in the past is the longevity, the durability. He doesn't miss games. He's always good for a double-double. His consistency's there. But if we're talking strictly style, he was not a good three-point shooter. Not at all. And how many times does Miles step back and knock down a big three-pointer, right? I mean, in this one, he was only 1 for 4. But Miles is reliable for the pick and pop. And in game 2, he knocked down a key three-pointer there in the fourth quarter when the Knicks are on a roll, when they'd made 9 points in a row. So I think the Pacers would have less success overall. I think they might be a better regular season team, perhaps. But Miles just suits this team so well, which again is reason 45 at this point why I think it's best for both sides to come to an agreement and bring him back next year. So there you go. Daniel jumps in with a Fever question. Are they going to put it all together and beat the Liberty tomorrow? I haven't been able to watch the Liberties this week. Obviously, we've had a lot going on with the Pacers and track stuff, so I don't know what their feel is, how they've been playing. But right now, just based off what we know, it could be a tough game for the Fever. They have not put it all together. I think Caitlin's due for a big game, for her to erupt and go off, especially given how the Dreams played her, given how that was officiated, how there was no freedom of movement, and how she's coming off her first game in 3 years since her sophomore year at Iowa without a three-pointer. I think she was 0 for 4, I want to say, did not make one. So I always like to take the other side. And so after that happened, I imagine she'll erupt for 3 or 4 of them. We'll see how the Liberty choose to defend her. It's a very good team, probably the favorites to win it again. And that's why CBS picked up the broadcast. Liberty looked pretty good, unfortunately. There you go. Will C22 mostly play off the ball this year? Oh, another Caitlin question. What's up, Angela? I was like, C22, what are we talking about there? No, she's not going to play mostly off the ball. I think we got to throw out the last couple of games, by the way. I think those were unique because of how the Dream not only defended her, but were allowed to defend her without freedom of movement. Because of that, it's more advantageous for her to go in the corner or go away and allow for everyone else to create and her be a somewhat of a decoy on certain circumstances, not all the time, more so in the half court set. That's why it's so imperative to get stops and be able to play their advanced free flow, run it down the court and score quickly in 4 seconds or less. Like that's what they want to do. They want to make split second decisions. Don't hold the ball more than a second and a half, and go from there. And so when she's out there dribbling a lot, or she's being hounded by the defense, it's better off to have other options. But no, she's not primarily going to play off the ball. But Steph White's plan going into the season was to play her some off the ball. Absolutely. Mostly as a rest consideration for the single game and for the season. They want, again, we've heard Steph all camp long saying how it's all about the end game. And so that's why they held Sophie out maybe a game or two longer than they needed. Caitlin didn't play in that first one either. Let's get back to some Pacers stuff. PJ, Thunder will have home court if the finals is. Yeah, absolutely. They had the best record in the NBA, so they would definitely have home court. Let's see. What else did I have on my notes that I wanted to cover? I talked about Mitchell Robinson and that situation. Towns came alive in that second quarter, 40-33, 9-0 run there. But I thought it was very interesting how the Knicks went away from Towns in the fourth quarter. So that's definitely something we'll be watching coming up in game 3. But overall, I think this is a game that you can still take so much film from, even though you didn't play well. You can look back and say, hey, look, you're outscored in the first quarter. You were outscored in the second quarter. And you marginally won that third quarter, and yet you won in Madison Square Garden. You guys go to Fieldhouse Files. If you're not a subscriber, I encourage you to do so there with me. But the list of the celebrity row is outrageous. Any one of them comes to Indy, and it'll be the biggest celebrity. Just think John Hamm. I'm in the middle of watching his new Apple TV series, but he's been at both games. As a broadcaster myself, I thought it was awesome. Bob Costas and Marv Albert sitting courtside. It is an electric atmosphere there in New York. And now after this, I want to go on and see if there are any videos whatsoever of people on the streets of New York, what's going on there. As they were exiting Madison Square Garden on a Friday night, they have to be very frustrated to see a team that they thought was so close to the NBA Finals now probably feel as far as they felt entering this postseason. I'm going to wrap up this live post-game show. I appreciate everyone joining me here. We got a long day tomorrow and a longer day coming up on Saturday. Tomorrow, the parade, Fever game. Sunday, the race, and Pacers Knicks game 3 coming up Sunday night. Just a marvelous performance from Pascal Siakam to lead the way. Career high 39 points from him. He did it at all 3 levels. I thought that was the thing that was among the most impressive. Is he made as many 3-pointers as Tyrese. He worked himself and loved his matchups of him going against OG Anunoby on the block as well, by the way. I thought that was fascinating to see those two go at it. And then we know his sweet spot there in the mid-range and what he was able to get going there for sure. But it had to be a joyful night for so many of you Pacer fans out there. The Pacers did have a watch party for fans at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. I'm guessing there were probably 6,000 fans or so that I saw, at least from the photos that were shared along. But all the feels here in Indianapolis with so many of the sports teams having a good time. And so what a day it is, and a great weekend. This game 2 win sets Indy up for a phenomenal weekend. Pacers get it done 114-109, game 2 winners. They've won 8 of their last 9, 6 of 7 on the road, and now are back home for their next 2 games. I'm Scott Agness of FieldhouseFiles.com. Thanks to everyone who joined me live and those who later watched on replay or at the Fieldhouse Files podcast. It's going to be a great weekend. Pace yourselves, and I'll talk to you all again soon. Have a great weekend, everyone, and happy Memorial Day weekend.